In consideration of the effect of the foreign powers on the Spanish Civil War, let us take a look at the effect of German, Italian, and Portuguese involvement first. From socio-economic perspective, their effect was mostly of the same extent throughout the war, as from this perspective, the main effect of German and Italian involvement was their material aid and military involvement, and of Portugal, the opening of their borders for those supplies to be passed on, allowing the nationalist army to continue its struggle with less fatigue and a better morale of the soldiers. But how exactly? Well, the German and Italian military supplies have allowed the nationalists to divert their resources to the spending on, for example, foodstuff, oil, and other non-military supplies. Thus, having better nutrition, the nationalist army was able to fight with less fatigue and also with a higher level of morale. Also, it could be argued that with higher levels of foodstuff supplies for the general population, there was a higher general level of support for the nationalist cause amongst their population. Indeed, there are sources proving that some of the Republican soldiers would not join the army would that not provide them with bread. The nationalist population, being better fed, could be better motivated then. Considering the amount of aid provided by USSR and volunteers to the Republic, and especially the fact that the aid of USSR had to be paid back by the famous gold reserves, it is almost surprising that the Republicans continued this struggle till the end. Especially if the amount of material help given to nationalists is compared to that given by the USSR to the Republic, it seems that the overall impact of the foreign powers was such that it made it way more probable for the nationalists to win, rather than for the Republicans. This is further reinforced when we consider the US loan of $750 million to the nationalists, and when we mention that the non-intervention policy of the United Kingdom and France disallowed supplies to travel to the Republic, while the UK signed a trade agreement with the nationalists in December 1963, and that French only provided humanitarian aid and mostly on its territory.
During the Spanish Civil War, the foreign powers had a huge impact in how the banks developed. Politically, they were main interests from nations like Germany, Italy, Portugal, Britain, France, and the USSR into the conflict. For example, in the case of Germany and Italy, their interest was to help the nationalist side, because their right-wing ideology fitted with theirs and could change the political landscape in Europe. Thanks to their support, the nationalists won credibility and strength. Also, the establishment of a clear ideology, which had certain characteristics from fascist Italy and Nazi Germany, helped to give organization to the nationalist movement. In this case, compared with the Republicans, this represented an important strength. Also, the support of Portugal given to the nationalists could be included in this group. Finally, it's possible to state that the support given by these countries made most likely for the nationalists to win the war. In the case of the USSR, the Republicans received help to a certain extent because of ideological similarities, but there were also political interests behind these actions. Basically, the intentions of the USSR were to stop the Italian and German movements in Spain. This fear of the USSR to Germany was shown in 1938 when they saw the possibility of Britain and France supporting Germany and automatically left Spain. Because of the reasons behind the USSR support, the help that they gave to the Republicans was limited and had to be paid. This certainly diminished the power of the left-wing Spain movement and in many aspects. Also, it's important to say that having the USSR as an ally influenced the popularity of the Republicans and could have reduced it. On the other hand, France and Britain, with their non-intervention policy in 1936, also created a great influence in the war. Firstly, this policy made it more possible for the Republicans to lose the war. In the case of France, non-intervening meant to remain internally politically stable. Also, the NIC could be said a policy that was created and driven by anti-communism, giving to the nationalists some sort of support and ideological popularity. It could also be said that the NIC limited the scale of the war and made it not become a great war.
In July 1936, Germany played an essential role in supporting the Nationalist Party while Hitler ordered to carry the Army of Africa to Spain by German Air Force. In addition, the fascist regime of Italy provided air cover for merchant ships carrying 3,000 soldiers and equipment from Morocco on 5th of August 1936. The Army of Africa rose against the Spanish Republic and took part in the Spanish coup of July 1936 on the side of the Nationalist Party. Germany's military support for the nationalists didn't end with transforming the Army of Africa. German military forces were interfering directly in the Spanish Civil War to damage the Republican Party. By the end of the 1936, 7,000 Germans were in Spain. The nationalists were supported by German units and equipment during different battles, such as the Battle of Madrid and the Battle of Jarama of February 1937. German support was the main foreign support in the Civil War, as it was much determined than the support of USSR for Republicans. Also, Germany initiated the fear in Republicans with bombing Guernica and Madrid. In July 1936, Germany played an essential role in supporting the Nationalist Party while Hitler ordered to carry the Army of Africa to Spain by German Air Force. In addition, the fascist regime of Italy provided air cover for merchant ships carrying 3,000 soldiers and equipment from Morocco on 5th of August 1936. The Army of Africa rose against the Spanish Republic and took part in the Spanish coup of July 1936 on the side of the Nationalist Party. Germany's military support for the nationalists didn't end with transforming the Army of Africa. German military forces were interfering directly in the Spanish Civil War to damage the Republican Party. By the end of the 1936, 7,000 Germans were in Spain. The nationalists were supported by German units and equipment during different battles, such as the Battle of Madrid and the Battle of Jarama of February 1937. German support was the main foreign support in the Civil War, as it was much determined than the support of USSR for Republicans. Also, Germany initiated the fear in Republicans with bombing Guernica and Madrid.
Considering the reasons for which nationalists won, one of them is the impact of the foreign powers as analyzed from the socio-economic perspective earlier. The other one is the favorable socio-economic status of the nationalist supporters inside of Spain. As most businessmen and landowners were on the nationalist side, the nationalists could purchase way more supplies and equipment than the Republic, having the effect of a more supportive public and more efficient and stronger army. Additionally, the political orientation of the Republic to the left, which resulted in agricultural collectivization, has caused, according to some historians, ineffective production and thus supply shortages, having the opposite effect on the Republican struggle than the wealth of the nationalists on the nationalist cause, lower morale, fatigue, etc.
In the political perspective, it could be said that there are several factors and reasons why the nationalists won the war. Firstly, the ideological and political disunity of the Republicans certainly benefited the nationalists. The fact that they were divided into several groups like centralism versus regionalism, anarchism versus communism, democracy versus revolution, diminished considerably their power and influence. Also, in the political perspective, as was evaluated previously, there was a great impact on the foreign power support. The nationalist ideology was more supported than the Republican one, and this helped considerably in the result of the war.
In the military perspective, the reason that the nationalists won the war is that the Nationalist Party was provided with weapons, connections, and supplements, as General Francis Franco initiated the movement while he was able to access to the Spanish army. Besides, foreign military aids increased the power of the nationalists in the different battles against the Republicans. As an example, in one case, Germany aided 10,000 troops, 750 planes, and 150 tanks to the straight nationalists. In addition, the role of the Franco as the leader of the nationalists was essential in the war. As Franco was a general, he was able to organize the nationalist army well enough to defeat in battles and conquer different parts of the country.
For the socio-economic war effects on Spain and the world, it is first important to mention the overall loss of wealth in the country. It is estimated that as a result of the war, about 10 to 15% of the country's wealth was gone. This is not surprising, however, when we consider that only the gold reserves of the country were for the most part lost to the USSR. This incident, however, had another negative effect on the country, as without its golden reserves, and of course due to the general political instability of it, the Spanish pesetas were of very low value, thus disabling the country to import materials needed for its reconstruction. Additionally, due to the human costs of the war, which amounted for almost 200,000 dead men, there was less labor available, making lower the production possibilities of the country. Additionally, the inflation and debt, which continued till the afterwar period, made the purchasing power of the country even weaker. Thus, import was even more expensive and reconstruction of the country harder. Plus, on individual level, the standard of living was deteriorating. However, the comparable cheap labor for foreigners due to the low value of pesetas gave potential to Spanish export, such as the manufacturing of uniforms for both sides in World War II. Internationally, the awareness of Spain secured a net neutral position in the Second World War. This also influenced the position of Portugal, which, due to its geographical isolation, was then more likely to stay neutral too, once Spain did stay neutral.
In terms of politics, the war in Spain had several effects in Spain and internationally. Internally, the church gained more power and ended up with political privilege. This considerably changed the political landscape in Spain, which in the Republic benefited predominantly the workers. Internationally, the Spanish conflict mobilized the sympathies of the left and right in Europe and the American part of Europe. Also, it increased the political tension between European countries during the Civil War. Germany and Italy got united and started to share more their political ideals. On the other hand, the USSR, France, and Britain also got united because of the idea of being against the Great War. It can be seen here how this created the base of the political alliances, systems, and oppositions for World War II. Finally, it can also be said that the Spanish Civil War undermined the power of the USSR because they lost, like the part that we were supporting, lost the war.
From the military aspect, after the Civil War, because of the numerous number of battles in Spain, up to 15% of Spanish wealth destroyed, and it caused the death of the 500,000 people in Spain. Also, the attacks of the foreign powers in different parts of the Spain, such as bombing Guernica and Madrid, remained the destruction of the cities, and it forced many of the Spanish citizens to become refugees and leave their country. This mostly contains Republicans who didn't have any chance to stay in Spain. Also, the evacuation of children is another example of this fact.
Overall, the impact of foreign powers on the Spanish Civil War was mostly same extent impact. There was huge impact of foreign powers is how the event developed during Spanish Civil War. Germany, Italy, Portugal, Britain, France, and USSR were politically interested in in Spanish Civil War. Germany and Italy shown up involvement in material aid and military involvement, and Portugal opened up their borders for supplies to be passed on the nationalists. Italy and Germany's military supply allowed nationalists to divert resources to spending on non-military supply. Because of that, nationalist population being better fed, Italy, Germany, and Portugal's support to nationalists made nationalists win the war. The aid provided by USSR and volunteered to the Republicans was paid back by gold. Britain and France's non-intervention policy made more possibility to Republicans to lose the war. The overall impact of foreign powers was such as that probably for nationalists to win the war rather than Republican win the war. As it already explored, the reasons for nationalists winning the war and Republicans losing the war were ideology and political disunity of nationalists, which benefited Republicans, then the political great impact from foreign powers in support to nationalists. Nationalist ideology was more supported by the supported rather than the Republicans. Then the favorable social economic status of the nationalist support and public support and strong army. As most businessmen and landowners were on the nationalist side, the nationalist could purchase way more supply and equipment than the Republican, having the effect of more supportive public and more efficient and stronger army. In the military perspective, the reason that the nationalists won the war is that the Nationalist Party was provided the weapons, connections, and supplements as General Francis Franco initiated the movement while he was able to access to the Spanish army. Besides, foreign military aid increased the power of nationalists in the different battle against the Republican. This all reason made nationalists win the war and Republicans lost the war. In terms of political perspectives, war had great effect on Spain and whole the world. Internally, the churches were gaining more power and end up with politics privilege. Then there was changes in political landscape in Spain. Then during war, 10 to 15% of Spain's wealth was gone. Then internationally, it increased the political tension between European countries. Germany and Italy united and USSR and France and Britain got united, which could be seen as a base of the political alliance system and opposition for the World War II. Then the weakness of Spain secured its neutral position in World War II. Because of losing the war, it determined the power of USSR.